Hello and welcome to the Tyre Straights podcast, the motorsports podcast covering F1 news, race reviews, and other assorted topics that we can think of around the sport and other motor series. We are your two hosts, Doots and...
I am Scobbert, and yes, welcome. It's been an interesting week in the world of Formula One, and of course in the sort of universe surrounding motorsports as a whole as well. So
yes, indeed.
yeah,
And
why don't we
today
just
we're going to be covering the Chinese Grand Prix
yes,
as
indeed.
the race review. So initial thoughts?
Just on the race as a whole, or
Just yeah. How do you think the weekend went? How you feel?
I think it was definitely an interesting weekend. I think once again it was basically sort of a demonstration of where these regulations are at, really. So obviously we've got the teams that have interpreted them well, but then we've got the teams that are also struggling a bit. So I feel like there's still some ironing out to do on the for all the teams as a whole on the regulations. But no, I think it was as a whole a bit better than Australia, but at the same time I don't think it was by much.
Very nice, very nice. And before we get into the actual, that whole meat and potatoes of actually going through the Grand Prix, just want to start with the quick plug of please follow us on the social media accounts, that being Spotify and YouTube, where we post the episodes of this podcast, and Instagram, where we post all sorts of other stuff, news, updates. We'll be asking for questions and hot takes, which we'll be reading out in these episodes, so keep an eye on that. If you want your question or opinion wants to be included in one of these episodes.
Yes,
and
I mean, in future episodes as well, we'll especially when there's not a race that's just been like there is today, we'll have a lot of time to be answering questions and points that you guys make. So please do feel free to write in, and we'll take your comments into consideration, and hopefully a bit of a review from them as well. But if we get the ball rolling, just before we cover the Chinese Grand Prix, we've just got a few quick points to go over just generally regarding Formula One. Starting with the big story at the moment, which is the Bahrain and Saudi Arabian Grand Prix are not going to be running. They're just cancelled outright. They've not been pushed back to later in the year, and they've also not been replaced.
Well, that's not quite true.
Is it?
So essentially they've said that they won't run in April. They've pulled a very, very nice and cheeky move of just saying it's not running when it's meant to. We haven't specifically postponed it. We haven't specifically cancelled it. We haven't moved it to later in the year. We're just saying it's not running in April. And while they are still, there are definite talks about the possibility of moving it later into the year. So it also doesn't affect the F2 and F3 seasons. There's nothing set in stone, and there's quite a low likelihood of it, but they haven't outright cancelled the races because they're trying to do that. They're trying not to do that.
Right. Okay. Well, that's me told. No. Yeah. Either way, even then, the likelihood is low. So, just outside of the facts of the matter, what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's the right thing to do. I think realistically, there's too much risk going on in the Middle East at the moment for a big event like that, especially one that's got an awful lot of funding from oil companies and data companies. It's definitely not worth running it there for safety concerns. It's very reasonable for them to cancel or push them to another date, whichever they end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just it's a bit of a shame because obviously, if you watch our track ranking video, or podcast episode, I believe that was episode 2, a few weeks back. I won't spoil anything, but Bahrain is one of my not favourite, but definitely more. It's one of the tracks I like a lot more, and I'm sort of sad to see that we won't be running it this year because I do think it's one of the better circuits, and it also is it's a bit of a sting because obviously around this time last year as well, I think a little bit later in the Not much though. We had the Italian, well, not the Italian Grand Prix, sorry, but in Italy as well, the San Marino Grand Prix in Imola last year, which obviously we do not have this year. But to think that that's gone now, but we could have probably done with it this year as well to have a Grand Prix in April around that time.
If I had a pound every single time this man has brought up Imola in one of these episodes, I'd be a millionaire, and we're on episode like 7.
Yeah, number 7. I'm so upset about Imola. I cannot contain myself. I am beside myself. But anyway,
no,
yeah,
that is fair.
I shall hold my lamentations. And I'll move on to the other sort of story that's come out. Which is that we've received confirmation that Mercedes customer teams did not have the latest version of the Mercedes engine software in the Australian Grand Prix, which basically, to skip around all the science nonsense that I don't understand, it basically, for caveman brain, it meant that Mercedes customer teams, so in this case, McLaren, Alpine, and Williams, they did not have the same amount of power as the Mercedes. And I think that was obviously clear from the beginning anyway. Now, I will just add, I don't know if that has carried over into the Chinese Grand Prix. I mean, we didn't really exactly see much from the McLarens, given that they were spending the entire race in the garage. But yeah, that's the other sort of big thing that's come out that I'm aware of lately. Do you have anything to add to the roster?
I had no idea about this, so it's completely news to me. But that in which case, I think I remember saying this not on the podcast, but before the season started, I was going to say, like, if the Merc engine is good, the customer teams are not going to be close because there's no way they share setup and information about it as freely. And like, it seems to have been happening that these customer teams, while having the same powerful tech, don't know how to use it as well. And while we didn't exactly see tons of that in the Chinese Grand Prix, so that it could possibly still be carrying over, or they might be working stuff out. It is kind of insane that the customer teams for Mercedes are. It's not like an active team struggle. It's basically just not having the current version of the software for that engine.
Yeah, I mean, I just one last sort of ulterior reason in my mind for it is as well because of the looming sort of regulation amendment that will reduce Mercedes' advantage. Would you realistically want to give the opportunity to your customer teams to, like, put on quite as much of a lead as you have? If you've got the opportunity to build a very long lead before getting to a point of uncertainty where it's not clear if you're going to be able to, continue or hold it or whatever, would you want to give the other teams basically a leg up as well and let them stand on the same platform as you? So I think obviously
absolutely.
It's one of those things where, people will call it selfish, but there's no room for selflessness in a championship like this. It is going to be ruthless because that's the name of the game.
People may call it selfish, but at the end of the day, this is a competition. If the team wanted better control of the engine, they should have negotiated that in contract or go for a factory deal. But obviously, that's not possible for all the teams. However, for Mercedes, if there is a way in the contracts that they share with these teams to not share up-to-date software when they've got such an engine advantage, of course you're going to use it, especially when it's possibly going to change. Yeah. And with how powerful Ferrari have been, besides just straight up power, if that Merc engine gets toned down to the point where Ferrari are really close in contention, you're going to want as big a lead as possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's a comfortable sort of cushion to sit on once that change to the regulations comes in.
Yeah. And if that's being chewed away by the McLarens and the Alpines and the Williams, if they're up to speed, then it's definitely, it's nowhere near as much of a cushion for them to fall back on after the regulation change. So I think it's perfectly reasonable and maybe unsporting, but realistically, they want the best advantage possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just falls back on that whole sort of, if every team was good, if every team was strong, then no team would be. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, like I say, I don't know if that was the case in China as well, But we'll let you know next week if anything comes out about that. But to move things along to the meat and the veg of this podcast episode, we have, of course, the Chinese Grand Prix, which just finished up yesterday. We recorded on Monday. This race did in fact feature a sprint as well on the Saturday. So, Dootson, if you'd like to just go over the result for those who weren't able to tune in.
Yes, of course. So, of course, there was the sprint qualifying on the Friday. I'm not going to go through the major results of that. I'm just going to say George Russell got pole position for the sprint qualifying, and from that, the sprint went forwards on the Saturday, with the results ending up Russell first, Leclerc second, Hamilton third, Norris fourth, Kimi Antonelli fifth, Piastri sixth, Liam Lawson in seventh, and Ollie Behrman rounding it out in eighth. And really, there wasn't anything too noteworthy in this sprint, if I'm going to be honest. I don't. I can't think of any major moments besides two being Kimi's really poor start and the Ferrari battle. So, if we want to start with the start, what are your thoughts on it? How did that go from you all?
Well, I was working over the weekend, so I wasn't able to catch the sprint nor the race in live form. But just seeing the highlights, and for the sprint, just seeing the results. I've got to say, when I first saw the results like posted, I was sort of left scratching my head a little bit, because obviously we know that the Mercedes had some crazy pace. I mean, in the race itself, obviously it was a Mercedes 1-2 again. So I was just a little bit boggled. What do we know? What caused the slow start from Kimi, or was it just driver error?
To my knowledge, it is driver error. It wasn't a mechanical issue.
Okay.
But I'm not dead set on that. And he did claw it back, but I think he was higher than it shows in the results, because then he had a penalty that knocked him down after a collision with, I want to say it was Hadjar. He got a 10-second time penalty for, which is why Hadjar is like way down the order in the sprint in 15th. But the actual action of the sprint wasn't that great. Like, it was another like race start, but everyone was kind of just going full pelt, and then it kind of settled out besides the Ferrari battling, and it was very sprint. You know, the sprint has always been a little bit contentious, but we won't get too much into that. Because that's probably our next episode.
It was in fact the sprint race of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much to report on my end, at least, as far as I'm concerned, with the sprint.
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Like, it was completely inoffensive. It was a bit dull. The fight between Leclerc and Hamilton was good, but it does get better. And Antonelli had a bit of a stinker for how good the Mercedes engine is at the moment. But, you know, second season, it's not the end of the world. And also, second round.
Yeah, exactly.
You can still claw back those points he lost, especially with it being a sprint.
That disparity obviously not being anywhere near as crazy in terms of like the points available with a sprint.
Yeah.
But with that, and obviously not much to say from either of us, let's move things along to the Chinese Grand Prix itself. So, same again, Dootson, if you've got the qualifying results for those who weren't able to watch it.
Okay, qualifying. So pole position, Kimi Antonelli with his first pole ever in a main race. Very good job from him. Second, George Russell, who suffered technical issues in Q3 after absolutely dominating Q1 and 2. But realistically, I don't think it compromised him. It definitely compromised him, but I'm not sure by how much. Followed by the Ferraris of Hamilton and Leclerc in third and fourth, and then McLaren's Piastri and Norris 5-6. Then Pierre Gasly in seventh, Verstappen eighth, Hadjar in ninth, and Behrman in 10th. Now, quali it wasn't the most interesting one, and it was very anticlimactic by the end because it was just the Mercedes pull out, they go the fastest, come back in, wait for ages, go out, do another fast lap at the end of each qualifying session, and then go fastest again. There was a lot of jumping around and a lot of track evolution, but on the whole, nothing too insane. The only thing I could say is like props to Gasly for getting 7th. Like that's pretty damn good, beating both Red Bulls.
Yeah, I did see the Pierre Gasly masterclass.
Yeah. And it wasn't even like by a tiny margin either. It was like a
yeah,
10th
no, yeah, exactly. It was noticeable.
Like it was good. But that's kind of all I can say about quali. It wasn't too interesting.
Yeah, not
main important thing is just Antonelli on pole, and his debut pole position's brilliant.
Absolutely. I mean, that gave him obviously a very good start this time round, and he was able to, hold off an early Ferrari battle to continue on his lead, and then obviously in the end, if you're not aware of the race result already, spoilers, but Kimi Antonelli took his first Grand Prix victory, or at least in a Formula One sanctioned event, and it was obviously a feel good moment to watch, no matter sort of where your team allegiances lie. Yeah, no, that was a nice one. And just to round out the rest of the top 10, it was Antonelli in P1, then it was George Russell making it a Mercedes 1-2. Hamilton takes his first Ferrari podium in P3, followed by his teammate Charles Leclerc. Ollie Behrman brings Haas up to P5, followed by Gasly, who was able to move up a position compared to his qualifying result. Then it was Liam Lawson for the Racing Bulls, and then Isaac Hadjar with Red Bull, followed by Carlos Sainz and Franco Colapinto to round out the top 10.
Indeed. It's very, very interesting. While the sprint wasn't particularly great, I want to run through. I know you've only watched the highlights, but what did you think?
So in terms of the race itself, obviously, the top 4, very clear where the pace lies this year, at least at the start. We're 2 rounds in, so it's obviously not going to be the case for the whole year, I'm sure. But it does look like the Mercs, and then to a slightly lesser extent the Ferraris, are just in a league of their own. But what I do really enjoy is seeing the other teams, the midfield teams, and I'm sure it's probably as well influenced by the fact that the McLarens were not in the mix at all. But to see Alpines and Hasses and Williams and Racing Bulls, these are teams that were considered to be sort of on the back end of the midfield, or at least, in the midfield last year. To see them sort of fighting in the points and being able to get good points as well. I mean, Ollie Behrman in P5 is an amazing result for Haas as well as for him, in his second season. I'm optimistic on that front, but at the same time, to see the gap as well between the top 4 cars and then the rest of the field, which was relatively close for the most part. It's a little. I'm mixed. Where do you sit on this?
I actually really enjoyed China. I think I'm not sure if I liked it more or less than Australia, racing wise. But what I can say is I do like these new regulations are definitely growing on me. Being able to actually watch close lap after lap fights between 2 cars is really nice. It is so much better than a DRS train or someone basically
it's what we've been missing. It's what we've been missing.
Or the thing from last year where it was just one driver in clean air in front, one driver in dirty air behind with DRS, and it is just a constant get closer, push, try to overtake, fail and you can only try on the straights, fail, back off, recharge battery, try again in a couple of laps, and burn your tyres down. It's so refreshing to actually watch close racing where the positions will swap several times in a lap, not even just at DRS passes, like actual corner passes on one another.
The thing is, we look at
brilliant.
We look at a track like Shanghai, like a proper racing circuit, And we just think, like, because obviously we've got these sort of areas that have been sort of highlighted as overtaking zones, and to see them actually being used as overtaking zones is a really nice thing to see. Because obviously, like you say, before it was literally a case of, if anything, drivers would just wait rather than risking like a dive down the inside or a daring outside pass. They just wait for a straight, get the DRS, get alongside, and then just clear through the corner, and then it'd be, getting away, or possibly having a fight back with the driver behind staying within DRS range, and then repeating what the driver in front of them did. So it's nice to see the actual battling, and just to sort of get into that a little bit. Obviously, while the Mercs did once again get away, the Ferraris once again had a great start, with Lewis Hamilton rocketing into the lead at the end of turn 1. And just for the rest of the race, the amount of times that the Ferraris overtook one another, Hamilton would get ahead of Leclerc, and then Leclerc would make another move on Hamilton. They would. It was. That's what I've been missing, and it was. I think, in my opinion, this battle between the two Ferraris has been. It was a lot better than the battle between Leclerc and Russell in Australia, because there was a lot less of the influence of the limitations of the regulations. So the super clipping, which caused basically in Australia for one driver to get ahead, run out of battery, and then get easily overtaken by the other, that was far less prevalent, at least from what I've seen. Like I say, I've only seen the highlights. So, but yeah, to see actual overtaking, and it's not just relying on the car giving up halfway through a corner, that's refreshing and exciting. So if we can get more of that throughout the season, I'll be a happy man.
Indeed, I definitely think that it's good to see that the cars can race so tight like that. And while I definitely don't think that the battery wasn't as big of a thing, there was a lot more of an influence from the overtake mode.
Yeah.
Which essentially, it's like DRS, or it's like an energy boost while you're within a second of the person in front of you, but it's around the whole lap, so they can try stuff around any corner, any straight, all sorts, which is so much better than
it has definitely.
I
mean, we're seeing it now. It's improved the quality of the racing by a huge amount.
Yeah. And it was so much better than what it would be beforehand, where essentially you go into a corner, whoever's ahead at the apex just drives purposefully wide, and then DRS, attempt at a DRS pass. If it fails, follow around the rest of the lap and wait for the same opportunities again. Like, there was always the same couple of spots that were always, like, they were the overtaking zones. It was known, it's like, this is where you overtake, this is where you can get past someone.
Yeah.
And now that you've got this much tighter racing and a boost around the full lap rather than just on straight sections, those overtaking zones are now completely mixed up. They're still not everywhere, obviously. There's some corners that are clearly far too risky to try and make an overtake on, but you can have a much better shot at overtaking at any corner.
Yeah,
which is very good to see.
Yeah, definitely encouraging. Just to sort of continue with the praises for the regulations. Obviously, Kimi Antonelli got his first win after a great drive. Very, once again, very feel good moment. That sort of you could see the smile on his face as well when he got up on the podium and got to that top step. Even if they did decide to read out the wrong Kimi when he did so. Did you see that?
No, what?
Oh, I saw a thing where they. I think it was it could just be like a joke video, but I don't think it was. The announcer read his name as Kimi Räikkönen.
I think that might have been an edit, because
it may have been, but it looked like him reacting to them saying the wrong name. So I mean, in this day and age, anything could be made up. But either way, that was quite funny.
I might have just missed that.
Yeah. Like I say, I'm not even sure if it was true, but it was funny nonetheless.
No, that's fair.
But yeah,
but I'd say Antonelli's drive was fantastic. He literally commanded the race from the front. Besides Hamilton taking the lead on the opening lap, were it not for that, it would have been a Grand Slam victory.
Yeah,
with Russell having a pause. Yeah, Russell having a poor start meant that he had to like push through the Ferraris and he couldn't close in time. He was closing in on Antonelli,
Yeah.
but it was making nowhere near enough ground for it to actually pose a threat. So
Hmm.
really good stuff from Kimi there. It's really promising to see someone with that kind of talent go up against George, because it means that we could still have a pretty good title fight
That would be,
between the
yeah.
two
That's
teammates, which would
that's what I
be
was about
very
to add.
enjoyable.
It would be nice to see. But yeah, we've that's us sort of singing the praises of the regulations. But I would just like to, give a few little sour patches onto it.
Yeah.
Mechanical issues continue to be rife with 4 cars not even starting the Grand Prix. That was Alex Albon with a hydraulics failure. The same with Gabriel Bortoleto. And then both McLarens suffered electrical failures, with Lando Norris literally not even making it out of the pits. It's.
And neither of them did.
I thought Piastri made it round at least for the dummy lap.
Oh, I didn't
I'm
think
pretty
that
sure.
he might.
I saw like footage of him being pushed back into the pits, whereas Lando
He,
didn't even
yeah,
leave.
he might have gone round, but he didn't make it to the
No,
grid.
no, I was gonna say he didn't make it to the
Yeah,
grid.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm pretty sure he at least made it out of the pits. No,
Yeah,
regardless, the 4 cars did not even start the race, and then during the course of the race, a further 3 ended up not finishing. The obvious 2 being both Aston Martins. Stroll's battery decided to shit the bed and die, and then Fernando Alonso decided to shit the bed and die. All jokes aside, basically, the vibrations in the Aston Martin car was so severe that they were basically just, shaking Fernando to death. And then Max Verstappen, towards the later stage of the race, ended up having a coolant leak and having to also pull out. So with 7 cars either not finishing or not even starting, that's not. It kind of continues to not shine the most positive light on the new regulations. But obviously, sort of like I said, in terms of the hopes as well with these sort of flaws, I'm sure that they will iron out over the course of the season. Time will obviously need to be given, and especially for the teams to sort of fix what needs to be fixed, i.e. Aston Martin rebuilding the entire car.
You see, I don't see a major problem with the 3 retirements during the race. That does not bother me
It's more the
too much.
DNSs.
It's more the fact that there are 4 drivers that didn't even get a shot at the race, including the 2 McLarens, like a big name.
Yeah, the
And,
current
and this,
defending constructors champions.
yeah, and it's that they can't. Like if a car fails mid race, yes, that I think that is part of racing. There
Yeah,
are going to be some cars that are better designed. There are going to be some that are more prone to technical failures. But for the cars to not even be able to start the race to make an attempt, it's just it's so disappointing, because at that point, there's no reason for them to be there. If
yeah,
they've made it all this way, you could qualify wherever you want. You could have stuck it on pole, you could stuck it in the wall, whatever. If you're not able to start the race, it does not matter. And
no.
so it's a real shame that, and especially because of how much they've pushed this 22 cars on the grid thing, and
Yeah,
we have not,
that's
we are
that's
yet
that's
to
kind of
have
why I sort
22
of.
cars on the grid.
Yeah, that's kind of why I also added in the DNFs in that sort of statistic. It was entirely because of that whole. We've got 22 cars now, and yet only 15, which is less than obviously the grid size we've been used to for the last 10 years. Only 15 actually finished the race, which
Yeah,
is that seems like a war of attrition rather than an
but
actual
that,
competition.
to me at least, that's fine. Like the retirement's mid race, because there is an attempt and there is time for stuff to go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, like I
Because
say,
things
it's just an exacerbation of then the
yeah,
DNSs as well. And you think as well, this is terrible for McLaren. Obviously, they are the defending constructors champions. Lando Norris is the defending drivers champion. I can't think in recent, like the last sort of 10, 15 years, I can't think of a worse start to a title defense season. In my
in
mind.
in in Formula One, no.
No, which and it's the
In
fact is it's not his fault as well, which is obviously a bit gutting. But what can you do?
Yeah, in other motorsports, I can definitely think of.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
bad
absolutely.
seats.
But
I mean,
in terms of Formula One, in the last 15 years as well, like there's not. I don't think there's actually been a worse like title defense start, and it's not even close. I don't think either.
yeah, probably. Right.
But yes, to move things along again, we've already mentioned obviously mechanical issues and Fernando Alonso now being bound to a wheelchair for the rest of his life. But there was some more on-track action that didn't quite go as smoothly as the Ferrari battle. While the Ferraris were poetry in motion, we had Colapinto and Ocon coming together at one point. Do you know what lap that was on?
I don't know what lap that
Okay.
was on, but what I will preface is, while you have mentioned the coming together, you have failed to mention the absolutely fantastic defending from Colapinto.
I was going to
really
get into
clean
that.
racing the two of them had.
Let me introduce the topic, sir.
Yeah, but introducing the topic by telling the end of the story first is not exactly the best way to do it.
Yeah, but like when they reported on the sinking of the Titanic, they didn't say the first few days of the voyage were picturesque. They said it sank.
True, but also when one of the best parts of the fight is actually the fight and not the coming together that they've both kind of shook hands on.
I will also add that in the highlights they barely show a fucking moment of it. They only showed the crash. I only heard they battled. I only heard they battled like 5 minutes before we recorded it.
But
oh dear.
I will say, insane work from Colapinto.
Yeah, that's what I've read.
Out of nowhere, he was doing fantastic. He was up in 6th just by like pure driving for a good chunk of time, which was brilliant to see. Ended up in 2nd after the safety car and a bunch of people pit ahead of him. And then the fight between him and Ocon for that like set number of laps was amazing. It was great defending from Colapinto, pretty clean racing on the whole from Ocon, really good to watch, and able to hold up quick cars behind, and not even through like cheesy methods like, oh, I'm ahead at the apex and I'm going to drive you off the road, through actual hard but clean racing. And in the end, obviously, there were then pits, which led to Colapinto coming out when Ocon was like rushing past. There was an attempted defense from Colapinto. Ocon tried to make an attack, but it was far too aggressive, and even he realised it was too late. He'd lost control of the car, and they hit each other, span round, did a nice pirouette. And it didn't put either of them out of the race, thankfully. They did keep going, and I mean, Colapinto scored his first point since 2024.
Yeah.
And Ocon ended up in 14th, which is not the best, but
not befitting of what preceded that.
Yeah.
But I did see the actual accident itself, and like you say, it looks like a bit of a miscalculation from the attacking side. And it's one of those things where when someone's coming into the corner and they're attempting to go down the inside, if the car in front is already turning for the corner, you are just going to hit them.
Yeah,
that's something that I see a lot given my line of work. But it's one of those things that I have to explain to people a lot as well. So not the best overtaking battle.
It was shot, but it was very, very good to see that the two of them, like Ocon, very quickly put his hands up and said, "Yeah, that was my fault."
Okay, well, as long as obviously responsibility was taken.
Yeah, there was responsibility taken. There's no animosity between the two of them, at least not to my knowledge, which is a shock to see, but very, very good of them.
That's what we want to see, though: professionalism and maturity.
Indeed. Something we lack.
Yes, I have absolutely none of that.
But it was good on the whole. And I think just generally this Chinese Grand Prix has been
I would agree.
Good.
I would agree. I mean, on the whole, when taking stock, we've been treated to some good on-track action, a feel good first win, a long time coming first podium with red for Lewis Hamilton, and overall, like, a lot of the teams were genuinely in the mix as well. So that's reassuring. Like I said earlier, reassuring in terms of the new regulations to see, even if the top 4 cars were, pissing off miles down the road, there was battling going on left, right, and centre between the midfield, and cars that last year were fighting outside the points are now finishing P5 and 6. So yeah, very good to see, very reassuring.
Yeah, it was also really nice to see Bono up on the podium with Hamilton and Antonelli, and Russell as well, having been the race engineer for all 3 of them at some point in their
I saw
careers.
an edit where someone edited Lewis back into the Mercedes gear, and
that's very nice.
yeah, I say it just felt a little bit. It felt kind of right, even obviously if we know that's not the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
Good to see that that Hamilton's finally finding his footing with Ferrari.
Yeah, and I think these new regulations.
Fast.
Yeah, I'll say is I think with the new regulations they've sort of allowed him to reinvigorate, and given that Ferrari have actually built a pretty decent car this season, from what we've seen so far, I think that's also helped to sort of reignite that fire in him to sort of try and taking the lead at the beginning of the race, to try and hold on, to fight against cars that are obviously much faster as well. That's very, very impressive.
Yeah. Also want a well, we have not really mentioned it. Other massive shout out is Ollie Behrman in 5th. I don't think we've mentioned it.
I mentioned it briefly earlier, but yeah.
Yeah, but absolutely massive drive for him to hold 5th. Now, I understand that's probably because there were no McLarens.
That's what I said earlier, yeah.
Verstappen was climbing up by the end before his coolant leak. However, still really good for Behrman to be up there and to hold position. And that has actually put Haas 4th in the constructors.
That's crazy.
It's Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, and then Haas.
The fuck is a polar bear doing in Arlington, Texas?
Yeah.
But speaking of Arlington, we'll get to that later.
We get to Arlington, Texas now.
But there's one thing we do need to cover first, and that's when I'm going to put on a very solemn face. Because if you are new, basically, prior to every race, so in last week's episode, prior to this week's, and prior to the Grand Prix that just wrapped up this weekend, we will always make predictions about each Grand Prix, and then we review them the week after. So this is, in fact, the week after we made our predictions for the Chinese Grand Prix, and I must say I've somewhat blundered here. The 4 categories we predict are who we think is going to be the race winner. Then we cover who we think is going to be the race binner, someone who's going to, do something stupid or like a bad strategy call. Flop of the tops is the 3rd category, where we pick a sort of top team driver, like top 4 teams, who's going to have a stinky race for whatever reason. And then we also have our wild card prediction. Now, I'm going to make no bones about it, especially if you were listening last week. I have not done very well this week.
Not at all.
No. Why don't you start us off with who you thought was going to be the race winner, and were you not right?
For me, the race winner was going to be George Russell, and if it was sprint race winner, I would have got that. But no, we are pretending sprints don't exist in this. And so I don't get any points.
I mean, you've done better than I, because I predicted. I don't know what possessed me to say this either, but I really had a feeling that Charles Leclerc was going to be a race winner and get his first win of the season. And did he fuck?
No.
No. I really don't have anything to say about that apart from just holding my head in my hands.
Yeah, he unfortunately was considerably slow, or I wouldn't say considerably, but definitely had less pace than Hamilton over this weekend.
Yeah.
So definitely the poor choice. Now, onto the race binner, someone who we think has just had a poor weekend, or just a pretty bad weekend on the whole. And I have gone for Pierre Gasly, who, finishing in 6th, I would say has had a pretty good weekend, raking in 8 points for Alpine. Is no small feat, so I do not get a point for that one.
Someone else who does not get a point for their prediction is me, because I put Lewis Hamilton, but who obviously he actually in fact got a podium, his first Ferrari podium. But I will just admit in my defence, and anyone who was listening last week can attest to this as well, I put that purely on the basis of Ferrari strategy. I didn't think he was going to, have a bad weekend. I thought Ferrari was going to have a strong weekend with Leclerc winning, but no, I did think that just Ferrari strategy was going to send him back down the order somewhere due to a stupid pit stop call or not pitting under a safety car again. But regardless of the reasoning why, I was still wrong.
Yes. And then we move on to the flop of the tops, which is, who do we think out of the top team drivers has had the worst race weekend? And the person who, whoever's got the worst race weekend, they are the flop of the top. And I think I get a point for this one, because I have gone for Lando Norris. And not starting the race, I'd say that's a pretty big flop, on the whole.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd say that, it's, in fact, he was worse than his teammate in quali. Like main race quali. He did place higher in the sprint, but I'd say he is probably flop of the tops.
Yeah, no,
or one of them, shared with Piastri.
Flop of the tops can indeed be anything, from driver error to a mechanical issue.
Yeah.
So,
but however, I think mine is, no matter what you argue, mine's considerably better than yours.
Yes, no, I put for flop of the tops. I predicted that Andrea Kimi Antonelli would have a flop race this week, and I'm happy to report that he did not, in fact. But at the same time, that does mean that I was so far away from the mark that it's not even funny. Yeah, no, I think I said, I won't lie, I'm pretty sure I said that he would have like a pressure wobble, pressure would get to him and he'd have an off somewhere, and, other drivers will go through and he'll end up in like P6 or something. But no, I was dead wrong, and I will hold myself to rights there.
Yeah.
Not my finest moment.
Finally, the wildcard prediction, which essentially just allows us to put in something that's a little bit off-piste, but not, nothing too absolutely bonkers in as a prediction for us to get another point. And I went for a midfield car in the top 5, and thanks to Ollie Behrman and the double McLaren DNS, I think I've got that. In fact, no, I know I've got that. Yes, I have another one on you.
You do. And in fact, I'm not going to claw one back either, because my wildcard prediction was obviously Oscar Piastri in the Australian Grand Prix did not in fact make it to the grid. And I predicted that he was going to, bounce back with a podium to sort of kick off his season after that setback. And Oscar Piastri did not make it to the grid in China. And I'd like to not be talking anymore.
It's actually really funny that someone has pointed out to me that after the Chinese Grand Prix, the safety car.
I was about to say this. The safety car has done more laps than Piastri. I think it's like 5 laps it's done.
I think it was 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Yeah,
but Piastri has done 0 laps in the 2026 championship season. So not good.
Not good. But yeah, on the whole, I would say that this prediction set has gone very well for me.
Yes, at least comparatively so. 2 out of 4 for you, 0 out of 4 for me. And that does give you, I believe, an early lead in our predictions championship because
3-1, I believe.
throughout the season we will be basically whoever gets the most points. So each correct prediction is worth a point. Whoever gets the most will receive some kind of award from the other at the end of the season. So, not looking good for my start, but hey, maybe this is just my Oscar Piastri double DNS moment, and then next week I'm gonna win. And no, that's not me predicting that Oscar Piastri is going to win.
Well, we shall see.
Imagine he does now after I say that.
The one weekend you don't predict him, he's going to clean house, guarantee.
Yeah.
But before we move on to the other racing series, have you got any final thoughts about the Chinese Grand Prix?
In terms of my predictions and my favourite driver, the state that he has been left in after that race, bollocks.
Yes, Alonso's going to be showing up with an exoskeleton or something to the next
race. I was going to say, it's like Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'd say good race on the whole. I probably think Australia's slightly better.
I disagree.
But I'm not sure. Like, it is really
I think it's marginal, but I think this race, the on-track action was better. And obviously, like I said, without the sort of limitations of the cars, with the super clipping and the batteries being so much of an issue this race, I think it was better on the whole.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, qualifying was probably more enjoyable.
Yeah.
But
that concludes at least our dive into the Chinese Grand Prix and the world of Formula One. Obviously, we have no predictions because there is no race next week. But what we can now discuss is the world of motorsports as a whole. Now, we choose this moment to sort of cover a few other motorsport series that we ourselves follow and, discuss them, talk about what's going on there, and then, hopefully teach each other a thing or two, considering we do watch some different racing series to each other as well. And I'm just going to kick off the discussion quickly by mentioning the world of the NASCAR Cup Series. So it was at the Las Vegas Speedway, and for the Pennzoil 400, and it was an emotional first win of the season for Denny Hamlin, who he is one of my my favourite drivers, I will say. But it's the first race win. He not only is he now 10th of all time in terms of Cup Series wins, finally breaking his tie with Kevin Harvick. But it's also, the first win that he's achieved since the passing of his father. And if you're aware of the Formula One Drive to Survive show, NASCAR actually does something quite similar called Full Speed, and it sort of gets into the lives of some of the drivers and things. And one of the episodes recently sort of showed how close Denny and his father were. And there was this sort of nice moment where Denny's dad has kept like this, I think it was a bottle of whiskey that he said he's not going to open until Denny won a championship, which unfortunately, obviously, he's not going to be able to do now. But that was a win that obviously meant a lot to him, and that was nice to see. Sort of another feel-good moment in the motorsport world. It was close in the closing stages. In the last 10 laps, Chase Elliott was absolutely, flying, taking tenths of a second out sometimes every lap out of Denny. But there just wasn't enough road left. And that was a nice win for the number 11.
Fair enough. Sounds very, very nice.
Yes.
Very good win on the whole.
Absolutely.
But I was going to say, as someone who's not particularly familiar with NASCAR, I feel like, completed a bit of a side, I feel like most motorsport series, or at least a good number of them, have like a Drive to Survive-esque thing.
I think it's something that obviously F1 kind of popularised, but it's definitely something that other sort of series are trying to capitalise on to try and... Because obviously, what Drive to Survive does really well, and I would argue Full Speed does it possibly even better, actually, from just what I've watched of it so far, it familiarizes the viewers to the drivers. It makes it sort of gives us an insight into their lives, even if it's just a little one, and sort of brings us on board with them, helps us understand, what they're doing, why they do it, like who they are, what their personality is like. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so popular. But
That's fair.
yeah, I think that's why it's also appealing for other motorsports to do something similar. Because, like I say, it lets not only is it just a behind the scenes sort of glimpse at the world of the motorsport in question, but also it is sort of, like I say, an opportunity for viewers to kind of understand the drivers they follow. So
Yeah. Connect a bit better with the like the actual racing drivers, and also just to try and make a quick get a bit of hype, because it did work
yeah.
fantastic for Formula One. So
It's brought in a lot
try
of
and
new viewership.
capitalize on that same idea.
Absolutely.
But yeah,
But
that's everything from
it
NASCAR.
is
Then
indeed.
I will move on to WRC, the World Rally Championship, where we had Safari Rally Kenya that's just gone past, which was won in a pretty spectacular fashion by Takamoto Katsuta, claiming his first win ever after 94 rally appearances. Brilliant to see. He's always been a bit of a fan favourite. It's great seeing him finally touch the top step. And
There's been
doing it
a lot of feel good moments, a lot of good first
indeed,
wins,
yeah.
going around this week.
And doing it in such an insane race where the lead was constantly swapping and people were getting like buried in the mud, essentially. Like the conditions were really poor for the rally, and all sorts of the other Toyotas were crumbling and not being able to hold the lead. But Katsuta pulled through, and it was brilliant. Podium was rounded out by Adrian Formeau in second for Hyundai, and Sami Payari for TGR again in third, which is great to see him back on the podium. Young Finn, he's doing pretty good on the whole, but he
Always reassuring.
may need to step up his game a tiny bit if he wants to hold a seat at a team as good as TGR. But yeah, I'd say that's probably about it for rallying.
Yeah, well, just like we sort of segued earlier, we mentioned Arlington, and IndyCar has just concluded the Grand Prix at Arlington on the streets of Arlington, which
the brand new circuit for this year.
What did you think of the circuit actually?
I didn't mind. It's very reminiscent of like St. Petersburg.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind. There are similarities. I also thought like a few little similarities, not quite as prevalent, but a few to the Detroit circuit as well.
Yeah. I think it was like a pretty good race on the whole. I certainly enjoyed it. There's lots of good chaos with the issues with pit lane. Essentially, the race from pole was Ericsson versus Palou. To begin with, and it was a fantastic battle between the two of them until Ericsson's pit stop got mucked up by Andretti.
Andretti with the pits generally wasn't very good.
It was there was several of them.
They had a stinker with the pit stops.
I can't remember. I think it was Kirkwood.
I was about to say Kirkwood in the closing stages when he was chasing Palou down. Him and Palou came into the pits at the same time, and they had like I think it was the rear left wheel I want to say. They had like trouble with, and it's just like, oh, again.
Which is strange because something very similar happened because Palou and Ericsson came into the pits at the same time, and Ericsson, I think it was I want to say it was the front right that they had issues with. But regardless, Andretti was struggling with pit stops for several of their drivers. Like it was not going well, and that did lead, however, in the end to Carl Kirkwood getting the win.
Yeah,
which is always good to see.
Some crazy pace and a really nice sort of ballsy move down the inside of Palou as well.
Yeah, some pretty
quite a tight corner as well.
Overtakes.
So that was a great overtake for the lead, and just Palou couldn't get near him again after that.
Indeed, I mean Palou taking second spot. Obviously, the guy is a machine in that car.
Absolutely.
You're never gonna see Alex Palou is either in the wall or in contention for the win. There's no in between.
Yeah,
and rounding it out with Will Power in third is a bit of a veteran of the sport. He's been around a while, but one thing I do want to talk about, however, for this is Mick Schumacher. Obviously, steering a bit back towards Formula One. It's been 3 races for IndyCar, and he has been thoroughly unimpressive so far.
I mean, he if I'm not mistaken, he crashed into someone coming out of the pits in this race.
Yeah, I don't remember who it was off the top of my
But he
head,
like
but it
understeered through the corner, hit them, and then span round and
yeah,
dropped back.
he's right at the bottom of the table,
Yeah,
ignoring the still questionable Prema
yeah,
um cars, which we've still heard no news about what's
no,
going on with the Prema team. But he's right at the bottom of the table. He's had one retirement, and the other two results have been thoroughly unimpressive, which is a bit of a shame from him.
it's
But
not. Yeah, it's not what he wants. Especially like there have been obviously his Formula One career was not marked by success. Let's be honest. He needs to sort of bounce back now because to be able to say that about the rest of his motorsports career would not be a good reflection on him. And I'm sure he would prefer to not have it that way either.
I mean, it's also that he clearly has some pace. I mean,
Absolutely,
during
yeah.
in Phoenix, he was I want to say like fourth in qualifying or something like that. Like
It was
pretty
some
good.
it was definitely within the top 10. Like
It was it was something
something
high
pretty
up. I
good
will quickly
for
check.
his first
But
season.
yeah, for his first season, it's not bad uh to like be able to stick it that high. But I just think he was fourth in
Yeah.
qualifying.
Yeah, no, it's
But
kind of crazy.
we I'm just hoping to see more from him because it would be such a shame for him
Hmm.
to kind of just fade into obscurity.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
but
mean,
unfortunately,
he's
that
spent
does
so long
happen. But
trying to escape, his father's shadow, and obviously, with a name like that, his father casts possibly the longest shadow in motorsports. So,
yes,
to be able to have your own identity as a driver, you need to sort of stand out, and that's not what he's been able to do so far. Not in F1, and now not in IndyCar either. So, I
no, which
really,
is
really hope that he
fine.
can definitely, turn that around because obviously I think he deserves it. He's fought. There's a reason he's in these sort of high up flights of motorsport. Hopefully, and he's got to prove to at least to himself as well. I think that it's not just because of the surname.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
think
I
so.
mean, we'll
Yeah,
see. We'll see how that goes come the next race.
we shall see. Now, there is one other motorsport I want to talk about briefly.
Yeah,
That being MotoGP. Just a small bit of news, essentially with the current state of everything going on in the world. There's obviously it's a low chance that they can run any races in the Middle East, and as such, the Motorcycle Grand Prix of Qatar has had to be pushed back. But they have actually formally announced that it's being moved from April.
yeah,
It was meant to be 12th of April, where the race was gonna occur, but it's been pushed to the 8th of November, pushing back the Portuguese and Valencian Grand Prix in turn to make space for it, which I think is a good way of doing it. Obviously, there is always the chance that what's going on in the Middle East is not going to let up by then, but having a provisional date where they
yeah.
see
Being
it
able to
should
push
be
it
okay.
back is
Yeah,
making that
it's
arrangement.
it's that's about it. Because I mean, Lasai's always pretty good for the motorcycle racing, and
Hmm.
this season, while there has only been one race so far, the next one thankfully be next week. Um, it should hopefully by the end be quite a good
Yeah,
season with a bit of a it would have been the last year of the current regulations before they move to the 850s. It'll be enjoyable, hopefully.
well, with that being said, I don't believe there's any more to discuss. So next week, this week, as of when we record this, there is obviously no Grand Prix. So next week's episode will be covering. Basically, we'll be deep diving into the Formula One sprint races and really getting into the sort of discussions about them. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they beneficial for the sport? Are they boring? Do they detract from the sport? All of these things, and we definitely would invite you guys on the Instagram, on the YouTube or Spotify comments to, try and give us some points to go over there, and we'll definitely, mention in the podcast episode who's given these ideas. But
What we would What we would like, actually, more so than that, is ideas for how you would fix sprint races.
Yes,
As one of the
absolutely.
things we want to be discussing is how do we, because sprint races have always been a bit of a sticking point since their introduction, and we'd like to know how you would fix them, and we will talk through and discuss whether these ideas are good or not, and we'll definitely bring some of our own
Absolutely.
to that.
But yeah, with that being said, that's all for next week's episode. If you have enjoyed this week's episode, please do follow us on the Instagram, subscribe on the YouTube or the Spotify, whatever you're listening to us on, or on both, ideally, and make sure to tune in next week. But yeah, please do give your feedback on this week, give us insight on next week, and until then, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.